prank calls to take a survey and you're cheating? Hang up. It's War of the Roses on KDWB.
I'm crossing my fingers because Jenny and I have made, I think, a total of 3. This is now the 4th War of the Roses phone call this week.
Yeah.
And here's what happens. We find out the story of why she thinks he's cheating or why he think whatever. And then we make the phone call to the cheater and they don't answer the phone because people don't answer their phone anymore. Mm-hmm. Oh, and then there was the one that said, no, she literally would not take a survey from her phone company. So she hung up. So what we could be about to do is waste another 10 minutes talking to the person on the phone, and then their partner doesn't answer the phone. So I say we give up, we go home, and we go back to bed.
That sounds beautiful to me. The problem is people love their War of the Roses.
That is true.
So I think we got to try.
We got to try. We're on the phone with Carter. Carter, tell me why it is. First of all, knock on wood, cross fingers, that your girlfriend Melanie answers the phone later because there's a problem going on with Melanie. Good morning, Carter.
Good morning.
Well, we don't know that it's a problem, but it has been and it still could be. So tell me what's going on, why you're here today.
Me and my fiance Melanie have been engaged for about 6 months. We got engaged on Valentine's Day. And, we did make a decision together that it would be a very nice idea to not have sex until we are, in fact, married. Kind of delay that part of the gratification.
Can I ask you a question, though?
Yes.
Had you had sex before you and Melanie, and then you decided to be celibate for a year, or had you never had sex?
No, we've had sex.
Okay.
Yeah, we've had sex.
But for some reason, it's none of my business. I mean, I'm already asking a lot of personal questions. You and Melanie agreed together, let's be celibate. So for whatever reason, that's what you agreed on, right?
Correct.
Okay, got it. Okay.
So we both decided it would be a good idea, and it might make the wedding just a little bit, more significant.
Okay.
And unfortunately, she went to a friend's wedding. I wasn't able to make it for work. And for a friend's wedding, she met up with an old boyfriend from her days before me. And they, I guess, got swept in the moment, and they slept together. And I spoke to her, and I called her up for it. And we spoke, we sat, we had a long conversation. She's promised she would never do that again. So I trusted her because she's going to be my wife, and I'm spending the rest of my life with her. I have no reason not to trust her. So
no, see, and I kind of get that. A couple of comments here because Jenny and I were talking earlier about how people hook up at weddings. You went to a wedding, Jenny, 4 different couples that you know of were hooking up?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a hookup central. So I understand that stuff happens at a wedding. I think something that would be very bothersome to me in this situation, though, is that's an ex-boyfriend. It's not just it's bad enough she's hooking up with anyone, period. But there's already also emotions that were involved in that.
I wonder if there's anybody listening who's is that forgivable? And I think it is forgivable because if you love somebody and they made a mistake and you love them and you can picture spending the rest of their life, I don't know. I mean, people forgive for cheating all the time. I'm trying to think if that ever happened to me. Would I break the whole thing off and then miss them the rest of my life because in other ways they were perfect? I don't know. Well, we'll come back to that later. But she said what was the boyfriend's name?
Tommy.
Okay, so her ex-boyfriend, she hooks up. She says, I'll never do it again. And how did you find out, or did she confess this to you?
Oh, she confessed that she felt so guilty. That's why I've forgiven her because she told me she was overwhelmed with the guilt, and she came to me and we spoke about it, and that's when, I decided to trust her. She said she wouldn't do that again, and there was nothing going on. So I felt she was sincere in her speaking and in her words. So I made the decision to go ahead and say, let's move on.
Okay, so you think things are good. She's moved on. You're building your trust again. But then what happens? So all of a sudden you see something else that makes you go, this ain't right.
Right. We were watching TV Friday evening, and she was texting back and forth, and I didn't quite know. At that time it's about 7 p.m. and I don't have anybody to text around then besides some buddies, but she's texting back and forth, and it's kind of weird. It felt weird, and I asked her if she was texting, and she said it was just her boss. And that, okay, I suppose it's the weekend, but I don't know, maybe a project, whatever.
Yeah.
So I did kind of look out of the corner of my eye to kind of see, and she wrote I guess an acronym of some sort. I remember it because I didn't understand what it was. ILYSMRN.
Say it for me one more time. I'm going to write it down as you say it.
ILYSMRN.
Okay, I'm going to tell you what it stands for, unless there's like some sort of engineering or medical term that I don't know. I love you so much. RN.
Oh.
I love you so much right now. Is that RN?
I use RN in that sense. I've never used it at the end of ILYSM, but yes, that's probably what I assume it all means in one word.
And now, see, I knew the first part, but here's the thing. She is not going to text that to their boss.
No.
I might write, I'll be honest with you. I might write, if I'm texting Jenny at 7 o'clock and Jenny's like, hey, you forgot to shut down your computer today and all your porn was still up on your work computer, I shut it down for you. I would write back to Jenny, I love you so much right now for saving my job.
Right.
For closing my porn-laden computer. But you don't believe it's her boss. You think it's something sexual. And maybe who is ever in the phone. You tell me, because I think I see where you're going here.
That's it. I wasn't certain on the acronym. Plus, the timing was kind of suspect. If you think about it, a Friday night and talking to their boss is a little odd. I did think there was something a little more to it, but I wasn't certain. But if that is, in fact, what that acronym means, then I'm worried that my fears have been realized.
All right. So how long till you get married? 6 month March? So we're like
March. Yes, March.
Okay. And you want to decide whether she's cheating on you again or still seeing this Tommy guy or somebody else.
Correct.
Here's what we can do. We can come back in a second. We will make the phone call to your fiance, Melanie, and see. Somebody had an idea last week. They said instead of like an activity where you could go axe throwing with a friend or a casual acquaintance, nobody would go for a couple's massage unless they were going with a romantic partner. I mean, I agree with that 95%. So, Jenny, maybe you can offer as the incentive this week a couple's massage.
Yeah.
And see who she chooses for the couple's massage. All right. Meantime, text us your thoughts. Would you forgive her for hooking up at a wedding? Have you ever hooked up at a wedding? And then we'll talk to Jonathan Fogel from Fogel Family Law to find out what he thinks of the whole thing coming up next on War of the Roses and the big phone call.
And now, the dramatic conclusion of War of the Roses. Well, a girl can hope. 101.3 KDWB.
A lot of text messages about this guy. Text messages that says the guy gives me, I'm not mad, I'm just disappointed vibes. Let me back up just really quick and recap because I know you want to get to the phone call. They got engaged Valentine's Day of this year. I don't know who brought it up, whether he did or she did, but they agreed that they would be celibate for about a year to, I don't know why, it's their own personal reason. We didn't get into that until after they got married. They would not hook up even though they had had sex before with each other. So she goes to a wedding earlier this summer. She runs into her old boyfriend, Tommy. Tommy is the name. And they hooked up. She felt guilty. She comes home, tells him a couple of days later, I'm sorry I hooked up with Tommy. I will not do it again. I love you. I will keep our vow. He is watching her text the other day, and she types the letters. Let's see if I can get this right. ILYSMRN. Well, we recognize it as I love you so much right now. And he's like looking at this going, she's seeing this Tommy guy again. Mm-hmm. We asked, do people hook up at weddings? And somebody is on the phone.
Yes, her name's Bethany.
Bethany, you understand you hooked up at a wedding, right?
I have, yeah. It's actually a really weird story.
I got a couple of seconds. Let's hear it before we make the phone call.
Yeah, so this was a couple of years ago at a friend's wedding. I had just broken up with my boyfriend of 4 years, so I was like down in the dumps, but still looking to have a good time. Wasn't expecting anything. So went to the wedding, and one thing led to another. I guess we had some drinks, and got to talking, but two of the bridesmaids, and I ended up having, relations that night.
You hooked up with two of the bridesmaids, so you were in a straight relationship before, and all of a sudden you're having such a good time at the wedding, you're hooking up with not one, but two bridesmaids.
I sure did, and I want to preface this, but I am bisexual, so it's not like this was the first time or anything.
Gotcha.
But
okay,
it was the first time with two people at the
what a great wedding, though. I mean, seriously, this is like people like, oh, the DJ was great, or the roast beef was really good. Bethany's like, yep, hooked up with two bridesmaids. Good for you.
Exactly. We just kept making eyes at the tables, and receptions are great.
I want to get to the phone call for War of the Roses. I know that people are waiting in their car going, shut up, Dave, and make the phone call. But do you do it in the kitchen? Were you in the elevator lobby? Do you go to their room? Where did this happen?
Well, it was summertime, thankfully, so we literally just went out to one of the girls' car. She drove like a Jeep situation or something.
It better be a big car. You got three of you.
It was roomy enough.
This is why I need to buy. I'm going to buy a camper. And the reason I'm going to buy a camper is because just in case this ever happens to me, I'll have a place to go out to the parking lot. Let's say I'm at Cub. All right, I got to move. Thanks for calling, Bethany. Have a great day.
You too.
Bye. People are like, Dave, shut up. Make the phone call. We are going to do that right now. Then talk to attorney Jonathan Fogel from Fogel Family Law. We're setting the trap. Remember, the guy she cheated with was named Tommy. Let's see who she chooses for the couple's massage.
Thanks for taking the time to do that, Melanie. So like I said before, I do have a nice couples massage that I can offer you for doing that survey. So I have your information and all of your address and all that stuff, but I was wondering who you're going to bring along as your partner for this couples massage.
Can you put down Thomas?
Thomas, okay.
As in Tommy.
Yeah, usually that's what Thomas is short for.
Hey, Melanie, number one, I'm so glad you answered your phone because we have had a really hard time getting people to answer their phone for this this radio feature. It is a radio feature. It is called War of the Roses, and I'm going to throw a lot of stuff at you. It's going to come at you pretty quick here. Melanie, we are the Dave Ryan Show, and we've been put up to calling you, kind of a little prank, a little, a little setup by your boyfriend, your fiance, Carter. Carter told us that he wanted us to test you to see if you picked him or Tommy. You called him Thomas for the couple's massage. Is any of this making any sense at all?
Yeah.
So Tommy is the guy that you used to date Tommy, and then you told Carter that you had a weak moment and you hooked up with him at the wedding earlier this year. And then so Carter called our radio show and said, hey, will you call my fiance Melanie and see whether she picks him over me? And you did. Here's another bit of news. Carter is on the phone right now. He's been listening to the whole thing. He told us all about, the hookup at the wedding. And I'm not being judgy. I'm not here to be judgy at all. That's for you guys to figure out. But I know you said that you were not going to do that again. But then he saw the other day, he saw you texting someone you said was your boss, and you used an acronym that stood for I love you so much right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I'm going to let you talk to Carter. Carter is listening right now, so you're both being really quiet. I don't want to do all the talking here, but you're both really, really quiet. So, Carter, go ahead and speak so she'll know that you're there, that this is legit, okay?
I'm here. I thought we were through this. Melanie, anything?
I cannot be celibate until March, Carter.
So is it about, I don't want to jump in, but you guys aren't saying a whole lot. This is a very awkward War of the Roses. Does this have anything to do with you guys deciding to be celibate until you got married? Apparently it does, Melanie.
Yeah, I mean, it honestly, it changed everything for me. I can't do it. I'm miserable.
Well, that's you're fine. we can certainly break that vow if that's what you would like. But you won't hook up with Tommy anymore, correct?
So we can call up the celibacy thing?
Yes, if this is the cause of the issue, then absolutely we can do that. And you won't hook up with Tommy, correct?
Yeah, I guess I won't hook up with him.
You guess.
You guess. What do you think? I noticed right away the hesitation.
Oh, yeah.
So you're telling me you won't hook up with Tommy anymore. Hesitation. It should have been like, yeah, a lot of text messages, very strong opinions on this one. They need to call this wedding off right now. Mm-hmm. She seems so nonchalant about this. What a huge B. Get out now, dude. Carter is only hurting himself by continuing to give this girl his time. Carter sounds like a nerd. I thought the whole thing. I was like, this seems like a mismatched couple.
Once I heard her voice on the phone, I was like, they seem very different. She seems a little like, I know you can't tell everything over just talking to someone on the phone, but she seems a little more extroverted and yeah.
He seems like he's a paleontologist or something super smart and nerdy. I mean, you get somebody like Fogel. Fogel's a lawyer, and he's super smart. He's not really nerdy. He kind of looks like a badass. Do you work out, Jonathan?
I do once in a while, yes.
I think he works out.
I thought you were going to say he's nerdy like a divorce lawyer. I was worried that was,
No. By the way, I've been watching a lot of Suits, and that made me think about you. Do you watch that show, Suits?
You know what? People have recommended that show. I've never watched it. Is it a good show?
It is actually pretty good. Yeah, it took a minute to get into it, but it's all about lawyers and the backstabbing, conniving, evil things that you people do.
Not Jonathan.
I don't want to watch a show about I don't want to. It's like a reality show. I don't want to watch that.
Jonathan, listen to War of the Roses. Jonathan's a family attorney. He's been doing this for coming up on 30 years, handled thousands of cases, and he can help you with everything from custody support, advice, mediation. If you're with somebody or you used to be somebody who is not doing what they're supposed to be doing with visitation, there is a solution. Jonathan can help you out. Find him online, fogelfamilylaw.com. What's your takeaway this week on War of the Roses, counselor?
Well, so this reminded me of a story, right? It's not a very happy story, but in this case, there was a couple that was married for about 9 months, and they got divorced. And during the divorce process, it was discovered that the father of their child was actually the groomsman from the wedding.
Oh, so they found out after they'd been married a few months that the father was not the father; it was one of the groomsmen. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. The child was born. It was maybe about 6 months old at the time when they got divorced, and there was some suspicion. They did paternity tests, and it turned out that dad was not the dad, and it was actually one of the groomsmen from the wedding that the wife had hooked up with.
Wow. Okay. So then what happens?
Well, what happens is because when you have a child in your marriage, you're presumed to be the father. There's an automatic presumption. So in that case, they had to do he had to waive his rights to the child. He had to basically give up his rights. And then the actual father had to be adjudicated, fancy legal term there, adjudicated as the biological father. And, from what I understand, I mean, this dad was upset, but he realized, okay, I'm not the dad. I'd rather not be with this woman anyway.
Yeah.
And
so it all worked out, just not the way anybody expected.
Right, just not the way anyone expected. That is correct.
So when we talk to Jonathan every week, he's gives us a little story, a little takeaway. So what can we learn, or what does this remind you of that can help people that are going through whatever it is they're going through with a relationship, divorce, custody, support? What do you got?
Yeah, what I want to talk about is something called a recognition of parentage, all right? We call it ROP or a ROPE. Right, what that is, when a child is born to parents that are not married, the mother automatically has sole legal and sole physical custody, and the dad has no rights, all right? So what they have available is what's called a recognition of parentage form that you can sign at the hospital or you can get them online. And if both parties sign that, that's acknowledging in writing under oath that this is the biological father. But what I would tell you is that by signing that, the father doesn't have any custodial rights. Mom can still go after him for child support, but what it does, it gives dad the right to go to court and ask for either parenting time or some sort of custodial right without having to go through the paternity test.
Okay, gotcha. So go ahead.
No, I was going to say, so people sign those because they want to make sure that they don't have to have a paternity test. I've seen a lot of cases, though, where people sign those and they're still not the biological father. I've seen cases where people come to me and say, well, we signed this recognition of parentage, and I'll still encourage them possibly to get a paternity test just to be sure.
Yeah. Yeah, because you don't want to find out down the road sometime that it is somebody else's. I heard somewhere, and maybe it's an old like rumor or myth or whatever, that 1 in 9 fathers is raising a kid that they think is theirs, but is not actually theirs. So in other words, she cheated with somebody else and let him think because he's the better choice, so that's her husband. Does that even seem plausible, John?
Wow. I'll tell you, I've not heard that statistic before. Look, in my business, I've seen so much stuff. That would not surprise me.
Wow. Okay. If you want to reach Jonathan for help with anything legal, family, custody, support, payment, is the other party is being difficult, Jonathan can help you out. Find him online at fogelfamilylaw.com. Free consultation. Seriously, sit down with Jonathan, do it on Zoom, make a phone call, sit down, figure out what that Jonathan can do for you, and he can probably help you out. And there's also a phone number if you want to make a direct phone call. Jonathan, what is your phone number?
Yeah, it is 612-822-6244.
612-822-6244. Counselor, go watch Suits. Have a good morning.
I will definitely do that. And
Right.
I'm going to work out afterward, too. Now I got to, don't end up like Carter.
You exactly. You should see Jonathan's arms. They're ridiculous.
I've seen him. I see him on Instagram.
That's crazy. Jonathan, have a great week. We'll talk to you next week, okay?
All right, you guys have a great week.